Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Welcome after the meeting of the Prime Minister Morawieckiego with the Ukrainian delegation headed by the President Vladimir Zelensky. Let me move on to Polish Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, dear Vladimir, Mr. President, thank you very much for this meeting and for your visit here in Poland. Let me start by a summary of our conversation. Let me provide some comments about our perspective on what's going on now in Ukraine. Ladies and gentlemen, the beginning of the Russian aggression was a shock for the Western public opinion and Western leaders. Actually, the West had its own gauge of situation and simply wanted to domesticate Russia through trade and economic relations. Poland did realize what Russia and Putin were capable of, and the late President Kaczynski warned the world about Russia, and today we laid the wreath to commemorate him. And already in Tbilisi, just some years ahead of the Russian aggression against the Crimea and against Ukraine, he had already known, and the West seemed to ignore the true state of affairs, and the West came up with the idea of the reset first in the 2008, 2009, and in the following years. And there were a series of new openings with gas pipelines, and all of that were the next steps which the Russia were making towards the war. And our party, we were labeled as Russophobic. However, the Law and Justice government was right by warning the world against the reset Russia and the cooperation with Russia. The 24th of February 2022 was a breakthrough when everybody saw the Russian tanks attacking Ukraine. We immediately move on to the supplies of the humanitarian aid and military supplies. Thousands and millions of Ukrainian women and children were fleeing the war, and we opened the doors to our houses just to help people in distress. And back then, Western leaders were debating about how long the war would last, 2 weeks, 1 month. Some of them would suggest that President Zelensky should leave or flee Kiev. And with two prime ministers, Petr Fila and Petr Jansza, together with the Deputy Prime Minister Kaczynski, we simply went to Kiev in a sign of support and to show what the solidarity is about. Our great Pope John Paul II used to say there is no freedom without solidarity. He said so in 1987, and that was a moral compass for all Poles. That is why, since the very beginning of the invasion, Poland stands firmly by Ukraine, and Ukrainians on the barricades with their own blood simply wrote their future. They want to be the part of NATO and of the EU, and Poland gives the strong support to their aspirations. We know that once Ukraine is in NATO, we will all be safer. That is why I call the EU to accept that the place of this heroic Ukrainian people is in NATO and is in the EU. Ukrainian soldiers shed their blood, and through their heroism and courage simply show what European values are truly about and what the fight for freedom is about. And I would like to thank from all my heart to President Zelensky, to all Ukrainian people, to all Ukrainian military. You are the true shield for Poland, for Europe as a whole, and Europe needs to remember about that. The visit of the Ukrainian president in Poland is a sign of gratitude to Poland, because Poland turned out to be a truly brotherly nation. Our ties have been more and more close, and we've been building together the plan for peace and for the rebuilding of the future. And today, we already stated that several hundred of companies, Polish companies, are ready to take part in the reconstruction of Ukraine. And let us hope that the victory will come very soon and that these companies could take part in the reconstruction process. This is a visit of major importance indeed, because we are shaping today the new chapter of Europe. Putin and the Kremlin simply wanted Ukraine to cease to exist. But this is simply the beginning of the end of Russia, of this aggressive Russia. And this is simply the beginning of new Europe. Poland was the first to warn against Russia. Poland was the first to support Ukraine. And Poland wants to be the first participant in the Ukrainian reconstruction process. And let us hope that those guilty of crimes will be held accountable. We do believe in peace. It's not about being calm or serene. It's more about being peaceful. We do not accept the stance where Ukraine simply cease to fight. And it's up to Ukraine to decide what kind of peaceful conditions, the conditions of security, would be acceptable for them. That depends on Ukraine. That's up to Ukraine. I believe that a responsible future can only be built on the truth. That is why we need to talk about it. We have a very difficult shared history. Now the time has come to base our shared history on the truth and to write it again together. Today, in my chancellery, we were talking about the massacre of Volhynia, and we were trying to define the ways for reconciliation and for finding the truth. We know that Putin can be manipulative and he could be active in business, in sports. We will cut off all the attempts. We are going to intervene at the International Olympic Committee in order for the Russian athletes to be withdrawn from the Games. Warsaw and Kiev and Warsaw, two capitals of freedom. I believe that this is a new axis to be used for building the new security architecture in NATO and in the EU. Poland is ready to be a leader in the EU, and we've been in conversation with our partners on the continent and in the US about this new security architecture, and the visit of the US president here in Poland simply confirmed that we are a major bridge in the transatlantic relations. We do appreciate the role of the United States in this architecture. At the same time, I'd like to highlight that we are the victim of Russian aggression as well. The fake news, the troll farms, the disinformation campaign. Our intelligence services have been working 24 hours a day to simply detect spies and disinformation campaign. A network of spies has been recently dismantled. We've been following up the disinformation campaign in the traditional press and online. And that was also the subject of our conversation today. Well, the Kremlin simply wants us to quarrel, to have divides. And Russia wants to create the divide between Ukraine and Poland. That is why I call all the Poles to stay cautious, be prudent, and be wary of this hateful Russian propaganda. Let us not be divided, because today Ukrainian soldiers have been fighting for your and for our freedom. The friend in need is a friend indeed. That's what we used to say. And actually, the fight shows who is the real friend. Before the war, I was in the diplomatic offensive in the Western Europe to mobilize European states to help Ukraine. And back then, people simply did not listen about the Russian threat. Since the beginning of the war, we've been in a very close cooperation. And indeed, we've been working together and we support the heroic fight of Ukrainians. But we did talk about the Ukrainian grain on the Polish market and other staples foods, which are now stocked on the Polish market. And we actually tried to find measures to be implemented to address this challenge. This is a major challenge for us today. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to open the new border crossing point, the railway border crossing point between Rawa Ruska and Hrebenne. This is yet another proof of our cooperation. And let me add one more thing, truly moving and dramatic. Together with the European Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen, myself, and President Volodymyr Zelensky, we are three working in order for children who are now in Russia. We want these children to come back to their home country. This is a barbaric act, and our mission is to organize their return to Ukraine. Ukraine have been purchasing the military equipment produced by Polish companies, and the military supplies, Rosomak, you see it just behind us, and the three companies of rugs or crabs, and which have proven to be very effective on the front line. Well, this is the type of military equipment which could be a major part of the Ukrainian army. Right now, these are the major military means of the Polish army and parents as well. All of these military supplies are provided to Ukrainian military. And the last topic, the rebuilding of Ukraine. As I said, hundreds of Polish businesses stand ready to help. First agreements have been signed today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a major day. Mr. President, Poles know how precious freedom how precious freedom and solidarity is. That is why we are committed to supporting Ukrainian people and Ukrainian soldiers at the front line in the fight against Russian aggressors. What's at stake is the freedom of Ukraine and the security of the European continent and of Poland. Russia has already lost this war. It has lost the fight for Ukrainian souls. And I'm sure that it will lose this battle for Ukraine, this fight for Ukraine, and it will lose the war waged to dominate our region. And we want all to live in peace and to thrive. And I'm convinced that thanks to the stance, the heroic stance of Ukraine, we are close to that day when Russia will lose. On the 24th of February 22, a new chapter was opened, the beginning of the end of Russian imperialism. and the new beginning in the cooperation between Ukraine and Poland based on truth. The war made us closer, and today our friendship will become the foundation for the years, dozens of years to come. Ukraine will survive. Ukraine will win. Let God protect Ukrainian people, and let God protect Poland, our freedom, our solidarity, and our strength. Thank you.
Now I would like to give the floor to President Volodymyr Zelensky. Thank you very much on behalf of myself for all these important words about crucial actions to be taken. And from the very beginning of the war, I've been grateful to you for all that you have done. Thank you very much, dear journalists, ladies and gentlemen, all our today's talks. This is a sign of victory, in fact. It's very important. Just after the meeting with the Prime Minister Morawiecki, I would like to give you a couple of very important details. In fact, we are having a very important package at our disposal, which is very important for the Ukrainian military and also for freedom in Ukraine and in the whole world. What is really important is that all the soldiers who are at the front line there in Ukraine, that they know that we are all involved in improving their strength. We need this strength, and thank you very much for that. I would also like to thank. We are talking not only about support, but also about cooperation. The cooperation is also of great importance for us. It is related to buying military equipment, which helps us improve our potential in Ukraine. We've just signed the agreement on buying Rosomak armored vehicles, racks and Pioruns. This is a very significant thing, something that will help us defend ourselves, our lives. And this is a very important thing. We've been discussing it today with our brothers from Poland. This is very important. We need to also start producing our own munition and weapons so that we become more effective in this field. I'm very glad that I can talk about it today because it's in fact something that sums up our previous talks and negotiations, namely in Lviv. We can see the results of those talks now in the battlefield. We need to create also an aviation coalition with our allies, and we have the support of our Polish brothers for that. We've also talked about infrastructure-related issues and the reconstruction of Ukraine. This was mentioned, of course, by Prime Minister Morawiecki in his speech. We've been discussing issues related to agriculture, and we found a solution to that. I consider that in the following weeks, it will be possible to sort out all the problems related to this issue. There shouldn't be any constraints or obstacles between such friends, such dear friends as Poland and Ukraine. I would like to thank the Polish government for strengthening our logistic potential, because through your ports we receive all kinds of help from the whole world, namely medical help, military help, and other type of help. And especially I'm really grateful for humanitarian aid. This is of great importance. We've been discussing also issues related to the cooperation between Polish and Ukrainian railways. There will be a new railway crossing through Rawa Ruska and Chrebenne. We expect that this will become operational soon. In the following months, agreements have been signed and Ukraine will be rebuilt, and it will also, I hope, help a lot Polish businesses and companies, and help us creating new jobs in Poland and Ukraine. I think this will have also a great social impact. We would like Polish businesses to take part actively in rebuilding Ukraine. This is what I wanted to stress exactly, because this will help us to minimize war risks. We've been talking about the relations between Poland and the European Union, and I would like to thank Poland for supporting our candidacy to the European Union. What is also needed here is that we are looking for a solution on how to deal with the issue related to kidnapped children, Ukrainian children, who are now in Russia. It's not even a federation for us, the Russian Federation. Our Polish brothers and sisters are ready to help us really with this activity related to kidnapped children. We are looking for those children, and thank you for supporting us in doing so. A Russian government wants to deprive those children of their Ukrainian identity. This is another form of Russian aggression, and we are altogether against this kind of aggression. We've always been against this aggression, we, Poland and Ukraine, and hereby I would like to thank all the Polish people and the Polish government for that. Thank you very much.